Do you see what I'm trying to say? It gets more complicated. Okay? It gets more complicated, and this is what we're going to do in the next slides. And we're going to stop here because I'll share with you the contingency factors. And now you know that, oh, I didn't think of it this way. There's so much depth to this and so much consequences to this. But we would like, the word is so attractive. We graduate critical thinkers. Very nice. It sounds very nice on their brochure and certificates, and very nice. But I'm not sure if we're ready. And the objective of the workshop is to make us ready. So we can think how we can backward engineer that into our educational machine. We need to continue with trying to answer these questions now. Before the break, I gave the chance to feel the dilemma, and it is a dilemma. Now let me share with you some of the contingency factors that could somehow force you to change your mind, to reframe your questions and you frame the answer to these questions. Contingency factors. If you want critical thinking and you think it should be welcomed or with a certain level, there are contingency factors that govern the answer. 1, content issues. Topic, subject, major, etc. What is being offered here? What is being critiqued? So if you're talking about information and theories in the medical field, there's no way you can teach those theories and information without scientific evidence. There's no way. Okay? Unsupported hypotheses do not exist in the medical field, maybe in also the engineering field. Doesn't exist. But when you go further to social sciences, business management, and softer elements of majors and topics, philosophy kicks in. Arguments can come in. Experimentation and empirical evidence that could prove that what you're saying is true or not. There's more room. So the subject can actually govern that. Now, if you are trying to develop critical thinkers, we need to keep in mind that we are equipping them with the critical thinking machine that should be applicable in life. Okay? It's a life skill. All right? Now, I want you to understand that there are certain subjects are more lenient and more welcoming to critical thinking. If you're thinking about science and hard sciences, yes, absolutely, there's no room, okay, to critique without evidence. But there are certain subjects that are a bit dodgy, a bit sensitive. First of all, history. You're teaching history, okay? And you're reading a book of history of any sort. And you might find evidence that dispute what you say. Why? Because history is only written by the ones who win. If somebody provided evidence that what you think and you're preaching, that piece of history is not true, can you take it? Yeah. Now I was in a position someday that someone was actually giving a historical piece of and lessons about Hitler. Some say he's a madman as of history and literature, and some had literature that he must be celebrated as a national hero. Can you take it? That's history. You see what I mean? Now we're moving away from hard sciences to these subjects. If you're a history instructor, can you handle a student coming back to you and telling you that, I'm sorry, I have empirical evidence or piece of literature in history that says that what you're saying is not true. Disputing what you say, that is not good as for an instructor. You see what I mean? Now let's move to a more contentious subject, religion. You are equipping the student with the same critical machine, the same critical mindset, and you're telling them this is what should be done, and no evidence must be looked for. Can you handle it? Do you see what I'm trying to say? You go and teach, and I'm saying that in school. What about at home? You tell your son, for example, simplistically, always eat with your right hand, never eat with your left hand, because if you do, what's going to happen? What's our explanation? The devil will eat with you. Okay. A critical thinking mind, a child, a wondering mind will ask you, do you have evidence for this? Oh, that topic, that subject, you should not apply critical thinking in. I'm sorry, but you're preparing me with a skill for life. I will apply it everywhere to all information that is being thrown at me. Any information that I'm exposed to, I should be investigating. Okay, is this true? Is it not true? Can I find evidence that says it's true or disputes it?
It's a prophet saying.
I understand.
Yeah.
But again, religious scriptures, scientifically, are they scientific evidence? Their instructions, their advice, part of the culture, part of the tradition, part of the historical messages that we've been conveyed to. All right. But do you see how critical this can be? Are we ready? Or are we going to tell our students, this is how you develop the critical mindset, critical thinking mindset. You should apply it in all what you learn. It's a skill for life. It will help you succeed. It will make you competitive. But please do not use it in these topics. Bipolar personality. You see what I mean? Now what I'm trying to say is there's no right and wrong. Do we have the structure? Okay? The structure and the framework for students to be able to develop that skill and refrain from using that skill somewhere else. Because it can get messy. It can go to religion, policy, political views. Where do we stop? Can we have the structure? It's up to you to design the structure, to make the student understand there are certain contents and topic that you are expected to use your critical thinking, and there are certain topics that it's a bit difficult to apply. Not to mention, if that was the case, then the scientists must work extra hard to provide empirical evidence to prove that religious scriptures are the truth. Do you see what I mean? We need to work harder. But for a child being framed and being forged to be a critical thinker, to be a leader, expect that kind of question from them. Okay? At home, at school. Do you see how tricky can this be? What kind of critical thinking students are we basically nurturing? It's important, but can we handle it? As an educational institute, do you have the channels? Do you have the mechanism to handle this? Contextual issues, society and culture. Will society appreciate what we produce as student leaders? Or society is going to view them as troublemakers? Yeah? They always argue. They always stand up and offer solutions and think that this is the way, this is not the way, this is the empirical evidence to dispute what the boss is saying. This might be viewed as disrespectful. Is this what we're trying to produce? Ideally, yes, but can the society handle it? Do you see how tricky is this? Because you don't want to graduate any student with good skills that might be viewed negatively when they graduate. Or, once they graduate, it's not my problem. Do you see the trick? I don't care. We need to streamline ourselves as part of the supply chain. We need to streamline our output with what society accepts and wants and what the economy is expecting of us. Okay? So it might be very tricky. Organizational issues. Now we're talking about not family, not school or the university, we're talking about working now. Organizational issues. Government and public sectors. IPOs, publicly quoted companies, family-owned businesses, non-profit organizations, or the private sector. Where the student is going to work has a certain tolerance to that skill. Okay? Commonly known, public and government organizations are less welcoming to critical thinkers than private sector. The private sector thrives on that skill. If you don't have that skill, you do not belong to the private sector, because that is the kind of thinking that make them compete, increase revenue, reduce cost, come up with solutions and innovative solutions to make the organization more efficient. But that might not be welcomed as much in the government and public sectors. Now the students must know, depending where are you going to end up, you need to practice the adequate amount of critical thinking. We're not training them to be unemployable. Okay? But they need to know. They need to know. This is an important skill. If you work in a government sector, there's a certain behavior and level that is acceptable. If you aspire to work in a multinational company, critical thinking is part of their DNA. You will not be accepted in a multinational company if you don't have that skill, and you will be tested for it. Okay, so there's a continuum. Society and culture might be accepting. The organization can govern where a student graduate can work or not work, but we need to prepare them for both. We need to prepare them to be critical thinkers. If they decide to join let's say a government or public sector organization, it's their choice, not ours. But they need to understand the consequences. Don't make them super critical as this is the only truth, and when they go outside and find a job in a government sector or public sector, and they stand up after the president have given general instructions, say, I'm sorry, I disagree. Evidence shows that I might dispute what you're saying. How fast can they be fired? Next day. Well, yeah, attitude towards work is an intelligence. All right? Attitude is soft. It requires diagnostic and behavioral capabilities. We're going to talk about that. Okay? But the machine, we're talking about the machine of critiquing information, optimizing what you tell me. All instructions that the student is being exposed to is under fire. They are going to critique. They're going to look for evidence. If that's not the case, then they will argue. And you need to accept their arguments, but also they need to understand that not all organizations welcome that level of critical thinking. They need to know. Don't give them the absolute truth, and don't tell them that life is impossible to formulate. Okay? It's their choice to join the organization that is aligned with what they aspire to. They love critical thinking. They love standing on their toes all day. They like to come up with solutions, reduce costs, increase revenues, be part of the decision making. Then they belong to the private sector. If they're not interested, at least they know. They've been prepared. You see what I mean? It's their choice. But it gets tricky. That's why. These contingency factors affect your answer. Yeah? It affects your answer. How much is welcomed? Well, depends where you work. All right? Okay. Let's move on. All right. These are recent articles about Saudi Arabia and whether they are buying the idea of critical thinking or not. Now, I'm just giving you some small examples. There are some research, published research, that says there's a required reform of leadership of Saudi public schools to allow competitive knowledge creation, not transfer. Transfer of existing knowledge. Creation, creating new knowledge to be competitive. Okay? Knowledge creation and skills needed by the Saudi and global market. Oh, that's new. Global market? Now the public schools are supposed to produce graduates that they can compete with Western graduates? This is the level we're looking at. And that is part of the Vision 2030. We need to produce students that are as good as this. But there's published research that says reform is required. That was, 2014, 2016. Perceptions and skills of Saudi students can be significantly improved by leadership training. So there is empirical evidence that says if you take Saudi students and give them leadership training, it changes their perception. It changes the way they perceive leadership, and they are allowed to be led. They know the value, they know the impact, and it can make a difference. Not the 100% that we're looking for, but it makes an impact. And that means that, okay, this is the side where it says training might be sufficient. This is the side where it says nurturing can work. Engineering students to be leaders might work. Okay? And that's the evidence that supports that. The most impressive piece of news, okay? 2019, Arab News reported that philosophy and critical thinking will be taught in Saudi schools. Are you ready as a university? So for those who still complain that we would like to teach it, we would like to welcome critical thinking, but the students that we're receiving from high school are not good enough. They're not trained. Get ready. Okay? It's not, you will be receiving a new batch of students. You need to upgrade the game. You need to upgrade your skills as instructors, because the individuals are coming to your institutions are critical thinkers. At least they have a background about it. Now, I haven't looked at where are they going to start in school. Is it intermediate? Is it high school only? Is it at introductory levels? I don't know yet. Okay? I would love to know. And I would love to see the kind of courses when it comes to philosophy. Are they going to be teaching Kant and Nietzsche? Maybe. I don't know. I would love to learn about that, but it's happening. Which means that the Saudi educational system have recognized the importance of philosophy and critical thinking. This is historic. All right? We are going to see critical thinking and philosophy teaching throughout elementary school, high school, and what about us? Are we teaching critical thinking and philosophy as part of our degrees? Maybe, maybe not. Perhaps we need to think about it. A separate course or infused in every course? It depends on the methodology and the format. But this is where we're going. This is the direction where the country is moving forward, and we need to be ready. Yeah? And this is based on scientific evidence. So don't take my word for it. Yeah? Yes?
Teaching critical thinking.
Yes.
Saudi schools level. Of course, would be a development. For me,
Sure.
I'm looking at whether the students, when they come over here, they are equipped to teach critical thinking skills or not. I'm not concerned about teaching. When we talk about mathematics, they are taught mathematics
Sure.
for 12 years. And
Sure.
once they come over here, they lack basic mathematical skills.
Yes.
So if the same thing happens with the critical thinking, they are taught critical thinking and they do not
Yeah.
have the skills. For me, it's the same thing. Whether
I know, because your specialty is math. Math is a hard science. It doesn't have much room when it comes to critical thinking.
primary mathematics
I understand. You know, absolutely. Mathematics and engineering, hard sciences, there's little room for critical thinking because it's based on numbers.
That's not what I'm saying. If the students who are studying math for 10 years or
Okay.
10 years, they do not possess the basic mathematical skills.
Okay.
How can they expect that they have been taught critical thinking for 2 years?
Okay.
They should be coming to the university with those skills.
Oh yeah, I understand. We're talking about a different issue here. It's competency, basic knowledge. All right, I'm afraid I'm not going to preach about how can we reform the teaching of math in elementary schools. It's beyond me. I wish I can control it, but I can't. But I see your point. These are basic skills. But we're talking about here is further. But what you're saying is important, and we will come to it at the end of the presentation. It's called transactional leadership. The basic knowledge base of your specialty, it's important for every student. This is a different level of competency that the industry is expecting. To know those skills in every field. But there's more. And what I'm trying to say is we need to design the educational machine to produce more than just basic knowledge. Because they could be brilliant in math. You could have GPAs of 4.0, but are they leaders? Are they what the economy needs them to push 2030 forward? We need more. We're greedy now. You see what I mean? But I see your point. Basic competencies, yes, there are issues with teaching the math and the science, and all subjects have areas of improvement. I agree. But we want more. Not only that, but more. And that is a transactional level when it comes to basic knowledge in specialty. And this is what traditional education is about. You know? Teaching them the basic knowledge to become mathematicians, software engineers, mechanical engineers. It's basic knowledge. That's what undergraduates for. Yes, they might not be ready in those skills, but again, that's transactional. I'm talking about skills that are beyond. Okay? So, this is piece of news. shows that we are progressing and we need to be ready. Yes?
Let me emphasize on what Dr. raised now.
Sure.
I think it's good to have a logic and critical thinking
Yes.
intertwined with artificial intelligence.
Okay.
What he said is actually true.
Yes.
It's part of across all faculties.
Yes.
I come from the US down here.
Oh yeah.
I was to translate the US curriculum
Yeah.
and teach it to the student here.
Sure.
We really found out that elementary or the higher school need to be really, the bar need to be raised in home.
Oh yeah.
If we really want those people to be critical thinkers,
Yeah.
the bar at elementary and the high school,
Yeah.
they should be green, very well to be ready to be at par with their Western counterparts.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's
If not,
yeah.
any critical thinking or philosophy that you taught them would just be a waste of resources.
Oh no, they will not be processed.
Okay.
They will be incapable of processing them to begin with
Okay.
if they don't have the knowledge base.
Yes.
Do you see what I mean? But at the end of the presentation, I'll make that slight distinction. So what you're saying is true for a certain stage, and there's a different stage that we are aspiring to,
Yeah.
the leadership stage. But you're spot on. You're right. Yes, you're absolutely right. But framing it in a way that to say that we need a basic knowledge. Yes, every specialty has its own area of improvement. Absolutely, all the time. Okay, let's move forward. Now, we know what leaders are. We know how they're supposed to work. But let's talk about their behavior. Because we are targeting behavior, the human element of leadership, not the theoretical element. Okay? I'll share with you just small studies of what are the researchers are comparing. Some believe that close supervision leadership style versus autonomy when it comes to leadership is basically the most effective way. Some say the effective leader should be closely supervising the team. Okay? Watching when they click in, when they click out, watching their tasks. There are some evidence that says it might produce favorable results. And in some industries and studies, they say autonomy is also useful, where you give your subordinates the freedom and the space to work and do their jobs and deliver the results you want from them without harassing them. There are some evidence that actually that works as well, but in different industries and different cultures. Okay? So there is a comparison. Some would say the orchestrator leader versus the empathetic leader also can be compared. Orchestrator, again, close supervision, creating framework, enforcing instructions to orchestrate what needs to be done. And some say, no, it's not what the leader wants to do, it's coming from the subordinates. The effective leader should be empathetic and understanding to the hardship of their subordinates, and then allow them to do the job where they're comfortable, motivated, and productive, so it will end up with the right results. In this way, he is a good leader. He is an effective leader. Some studies says that as well. They've compared both behaviors. Some other group of researchers, the situational theorists, would say, no, we can explain it even further. And let's see if they actually dug deep enough and made things clear. They say a good leader must understand own behavior, variable number 1. Surroundings, variable number 2. Situations, variable number 3. Before adopting a leadership style, variable number 4. And all of that can be controlled and managed when a leader has diagnostic capabilities and understanding human behavior. So basically what they're trying to say is a leader should be a master of human behavior and psychology. Okay? It's getting difficult. So in order for a leader to be effective, to manipulate these 4 variables, to understand the right situation for the right type of leadership, to the right response, they must be master psychologists. Okay? Sorry. But they try to dig in to explain things, they complicated things. This is how scholarship works. It didn't clear things. You know what to look for in these variables when it comes to the situational leadership, but it's complicating things. Now, as educational institutions, we want to produce success. This is making it difficult for us, not making it easy. But doesn't make it impossible. So, own behavior towards subordinates, surroundings, the constraints of the organization and the environment, situations that might be different as economy change, and then understanding the type of leadership, top down, bottom up, dictatorship or authoritarian versus democratic, what type works, which one is more effective. The student must be intelligent enough, okay, to do the same, the right leadership style to the right situation and organization. Difficult, I'm not saying it's easy, but this is what the literature is saying, okay? Now, important question, and this is what we need to go back home with. What is needed by our customer? What does the Saudi industry needs from us? All right? Take a minute to think. Because again, remember when I told you, this is our only judge. If we think that we're producing quality, the industry is the judge. It's not us. Okay? Quality is only judged by the customer. So what do you think the Saudi industry needs from us? What do they expect from us in terms of students and their readiness and knowledge? What do you think? Of course, it's going to be slightly different in every field. I understand that. But in general, what do you think they expect from us? Perhaps. If that's the case, then we need to work hard. Because it's really complex. Really hard. What do they need? Sure, go.
It depends on the discipline. If I'm talking about leaders in education, I think
Yeah.
what the country needs from us is educators, not teachers, not instructors.
Okay.
Someone who cares. Someone
Okay.
who's
That is within, absolutely.
Even if it's going
Sure.
to be against the side.
Sure.
I said the philosophical names, Nietzsche or others, if they're going to speak with their ideas,
Absolutely.
they're going to be faced with opposition.
Absolutely. That is what is expected of the educational sector. If your specialty is education, then this is the expectation. All right? That is from the instructor side. All right? The industry. We're talking about the industry. The customer is expecting your graduates with bachelor's degrees. What do they expect? What do they need to hire? Because eventually, we need to produce graduates who will be hired and employable.
Is there feedback from the industry regarding the leadership aspects?
Oh, absolutely.
Can you give an example?
I'll give you my view. I'll give you my view and I'll give you what the industry requires. In general terms, because I cannot be specific to the specialty. They might need different specialties. Okay? In general, generally speaking. Now, it might be, perhaps it's needed for me just to share with you my background. Okay? I'm an industrial engineer. Okay? I worked for 10 years in logistics and supply chain operations management. I worked for multinationals and Saudi distributors in Saudi Arabia for 10 years. And then I changed my career and I became an academic. Okay? And my degree is in strategic management. Okay? I used to be the person in the industry assessing those students, doing their internship, and when I want to hire them. What am I looking for? All right? Now, a few years after, now I am their professor, and I'm trying to backward engineer that so I can wear both hats. Sorry. Yeah, it happens. It happens. So the view and the answer that I'm going to give you now is based on my personal experience. Okay?